Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today in Medicine Hat. My name is Michaela Fry. I am the very, very, very proud MLA for Brooks Medicine Hat. And thank you to Halo for having us in your beautiful hangar here today. I am a vocal supporter of Halo Air Ambulance, as many of you know, so today has been a long time coming, but a wonderful day nonetheless. Today's a day we've all been waiting on. After years of discussion, advocacy, and community support, I am both humbled and very excited to be here with you today. You're going to hear me say that a couple times, but I'm excited to be here today. I want to thank the dedicated, hardworking staff, air crews, paramedics, board members, volunteers, and the rest of your team who make a difference across southeastern Alberta every single day. For the past 3 years, I've had the pleasure of representing Brooks Medicine Hat, and if there's one thing that it's been consistent and obvious to me, it's that this community, Southeastern Alberta, adores each and every one of you at Halo Air Ambulance. You are heroes to me and so many others. I thank you on behalf of Southeastern Albertans for your dedication and your service. Born from a grassroots desire to help your community, you have answered the call of duty and impacted the lives of many and saved the lives of so many more. I know communities in Northeast Alberta feel the same way about Heroes helicopter air ambulance services as well, and appreciate your expertise and care. I am joined today by many wonderful people who helped to make this event happen and also serve our community in different ways. So I'm joined today by Premier Jason Kenney, the Minister of Health, Jason Copping, MLA for Cardston-Siksika, Joseph Scow, MLA for Tabor-Warner, Grant Hunter, Member of Parliament for Medicine Hat, Cardston-Warner, Glenn Motz, the Honourable Nate Horner, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Rural Economic Development, CEO and my friend, Paul Carolyn from Halo, as well as Paul Spring from the local Hero Foundation. I'm also joined by Mayor Lindsay Clark, Reeve Dan Hamilton, Past Reeve Steve Wickering of County of 40 Mile, Deputy Reeve Richard Oster, and many more esteemed guests, including many elected council members, and I just want to say thank you all for being here today again. Also, we're joined by the Halo Board of Directors, Dale Thacker, the Chair of Halo, Rhonda Herman-Sticko, Vice Chair, Lorraine Dykstra, Tricia Nardari, Bruce Reiger, Grenner Villio, Nicole Murphy, Noella Kraus, and Nathan Nunweiler. So thank you to all of the Board of Directors who are here today. I know many community representatives are here and to show their support to both Halo and Hero. But as you might have gathered, we're here today to share the details about the additional funding for Hero and Halo. For those of us who live in rural communities or for people traveling in remote areas, being able to access Halo and Hero services can mean the difference between life and death if disaster strikes. Alberta's government is investing in helicopter air ambulance services and expanding capacity in our emergency medical system as part of Budget 2022. I am confident that the additional supports provided today will strengthen our healthcare system so Albertans can get the best care possible, no matter where they live. This is a meaningful and timely investment in rural healthcare. And with that, I would like to invite Premier Jason Kenney.
Thank you so much, Michaela, for that and your hard work and your amazing advocacy for Medicine Hat, Brooks Medicine Hat in Southeast Alberta. Thank you to all of my colleagues from the legislature who are here and all the local leaders and volunteers from Southeast Alberta communities. I always feel like I'm a little bit back at home when I'm in this part of the province, partly because I've got family roots here in the Hat going back 100 years. And also, I grew up in a small prairie village in southern Saskatchewan, and so we always felt like when we were visiting the Hat, we were going to the Big Smoke. It was a big deal. So I know how very well, personally, from my childhood, what an important role the medical services in Medicine Hat play for people in this entire region. And that is why I'm so excited to be here today. Let me begin, though, just with a word of gratitude on behalf of Albertans for the fantastic work behind Medicine Hat-based helicopter airlift operation HALO, which for many years has saved lives. Together with STARS across most of the province and HERO up in, of course, the Fort McMurray, northeastern Alberta region and Wood Buffalo. These are organizations that started as volunteer nonprofit, it's charities have been supported year in and year out, good times and bad, by local communities through huge voluntary contributions and great professionalism by the medical professionals who staff these air ambulance operations. And they literally do save lives. In this big, far-flung province, where so much of our economic and social activity happens far beyond the reach of our big cities, we need air ambulance services, first-class air ambulance services that can get to people when they're facing a medical emergency and get them the best quality health care in a hurry. And that's exactly what you do. I understand that last year, Halo in 2019-2020 flew 38 missions, so every year, dozens of times, this helicopter lifts off and goes somewhere in southeast Alberta to help save lives, and lives truly are saved as a result. I also want to thank the brilliant folks over at STARS and Hero up in Fort McMurray, and I know many of them will be listening in, including, I'd like to give a shout out to Mayor Sandy Bowman, who has raised these important issues with us. Now, over the last year, we had some real challenges with emergency management services in Alberta. There was a 30% increase in demand, and that seemed to be connected to COVID and a number of other issues. Frankly, nobody saw it coming, but it put our system under a lot of pressure, and we ended up with longer than acceptable wait times in many cases. And that's why Alberta's government, listening to Albertans, has put in place an action plan to improve EMS services and expand them right across the province. We did so in this year's balanced budget, the first balanced budget in 14 years, with a $64 million increase in annual funding for EMS, including a $28 million increase in support for ground and helicopter air ambulance services. We've also appointed a task force co-chaired by MLAs Tracy Allard and R.J. Sigurdsson, together with the involvement of MLA Tani Yao, who himself is a former paramedic, and many experts in the field, to advise the Department of Health on how to fix some of the problems that exist in our EMS system, and they're already taking action. I know Minister Copping will detail that. But we know that in this community and in Fort Mac, that Halo and Hero have worked with the Alberta government for many years to get stable, reliable core funding, as opposed to just the fee-for-service funding. In the past, I understand AHS would provide funding for completed missions, and there was always some uncertainty about the level of funding, what would be there. That put more pressure on you as a community to do the fundraising. But you have made the point very persuasively through your local MLAs, through Michaela and the other Southeast Alberta MLAs who are present here today, through Grant Hunter, through Nate Horner. And I just want to thank you for your patience and your persistence fighting for the best interests of Southern Albertans. And so I am truly excited to be here today to announce that for the first time, Halo will be offered guaranteed funding and a contract with Alberta Health Services, moving from a fee-for-service model to $1 million in annual guaranteed funding. Likewise, for our friends up in Wood Buffalo, I am very excited to announce that the Helicopter Emergency Rescue Operation, or HERO, will get close to $2 million under a long-term contract, which is double its current annual funding. And we made a similar announcement for the fantastic services provided by STARS Air Ambulance. We did so in Calgary last week. These are all part of record investments in public health care in Alberta. In this budget, a $600 million increase in the baseline funding for health services. That's on top of a $900 million increase last year. We have always had one of the most expensive healthcare systems in the country, and we will always be there to ensure necessary investments to provide the best possible quality of healthcare to Albertans. That's what they deserve. And we had to do that in the context of real fiscal and economic challenges over recent years. But here's the good news. With Alberta's amazing economic recovery, with our huge growth across every sector and region of the economy, we now see revenues growing, and yes, we did make some tough decisions to bring our spending under control over the past 3 years. As a result, we now have tabled for the first time and passed just last week Grant and Michaela and Nate and Jason, all these MLAs voted for the first balanced budget in 14 years. And that balance, that fiscal responsibility, allows us to address pressures in critical areas like healthcare, like air ambulance services, and EMS. So we'll be saying more in the days to come about our broader efforts to expand healthcare capacity, because one thing we have learned from COVID is, not just in Alberta but across Canada, we need to get more bang for the taxpayer's buck when it comes to providing healthcare capacity. We have one of the most expensive public systems in the world, but we didn't get the kind of capacity that we needed during some of the spikes during the pandemic, and that's why we're working on important reforms and expanding services, including intensive care. But here today, we're here to celebrate the success of this community, of Halo, of Hero, up in Wood Buffalo, and I know that this investment is going to help the fantastic crews and medical professionals who work here every single day to help save lives across Southeast Alberta and through the other services right across our province. And so with that, I will now hand it over to our fantastic Minister of Health, the Honourable Jason Copping, for some more details.
Good morning, everyone. It is fantastic to be here. Recognize all of my colleagues as the Premier was commenting about the incredible, efficient advocacy that's being done not only by local councillors here, but by MLAs, and many of them who are in the room. But I can tell you that MLA Frey was in my office every 4 to 6 weeks talking about this. MLA Hunter, MLA Scow, and I just want to give them a great big round of hand for the advocacy that they're doing for this area and for Halo. So as a Premier shared, we're here today to announce an increase. He already announced the increase. I'll touch on it a little bit, but I also want to talk a little bit more about what we're doing in terms of EMS. But this is incredibly important because the increases, the sustainability, which we heard through the HEMS report, for all air ambulance across the province, STARS, Hero, and Halo, is incredibly important. And Hero and Halo offer a lifeline for rural communities in the northeast and southeast parts of our province, flying Albertans in need directly to a hospital with the required level of care. And we are ensuring that Albertans in these areas will continue to have quality access to life-saving helicopter air services now and into the future. We're doing that by covering about 50% of the base operating costs for both Halo and Hero. For Hero, that's doubling its annual funding to $2 million under a new long-term contract. And I know many in Fort McMurray and Wood Buffalo are pleased to hear this. And they know what Hero offers their community. Our investment today means they can continue serving the northeast region of Alberta. And I want to thank Paul for making the drive down here today. I was surprised he didn't actually fly down. You figure you'd have access to a helicopter or something, but yeah, it's working. That's the important thing. And then, as the Premier indicated, for the first time, Halo will have secure, guaranteed funding of about $1 million annually, and it will be able to sustain its services out of Medicine Hat with a new long-term 5-year contract with Alberta Health Services and receiving funding that is equitable to other operations. And once again, I want to thank both Hero and Halo for being here and for tremendous work they do for Albertans, particularly in rural Alberta. Please give them a hand. So really, what does this funding do? Over the next 5 years, it provides organizations, Hero and Halo, with the balance needed to sustain the critical service due to high capital and operating costs. It means that they can continue to respond to calls for medical transport now and into the future. And I am proud that we're moving to a more sustainable approach that provides predictable funding and brings all operators under new contracts with AHS. Entering into a formal agreement with AHS means having a more integrated approach to providing air ambulance services across our entire province. This will improve oversight and include added operational and financial reporting to ensure quality, safe, and efficient care. And I'm pleased that the three main providers will be funded at the same ratio of their operating costs. As we announced last week, STARS will also be funded at about half of their operating costs, just like Hero and Halo. And these additional supports are just one part of our continuing efforts to address emergency medical service issues, as mentioned by the Premier. Budget 22 includes $64 million increase in the funding for EMS to support priority initiatives and to add capacity and improve efficiency. This includes $14 million for an AHS initiative to adjust working hours and shifts for paramedics in 14 rural communities. This is part of the AHS 10-point plan. AHS is also making rapid progress on implementing other pieces of its plan to add EMS capacity and ensure the most critical patients receive immediate care. Implementing the plan is starting to show early results. Response to high-priority events has improved following the launch of the Preempt and Divert initiative at the end of February. This initiative allows ambulance to be preempted from assignments instead of being automatically dispatched when a 911 call is received. And this is to ensure more ambulances are available for critical patients. In one recent example, a rural community ambulance was diverted from a low-priority call to a high-priority cardiac call, and the ambulance arrived within mere minutes. Other top priorities are attracting more paramedics and EMS staff and continuing to explore ways to improve EMS delivery, including air ambulance services. As noted by the Premier, we've created the Alberta EMS Advisory Committee, chaired by two of my colleagues, Tracy Allard and R.J. Sergeson, and MLA Tanya Yao is also on this, and as well as a number of parties from across the entire EMS spectrum, because we know that the issue is not just about the ambulance, it's about how do we staff them, how do we ensure that we have people have the proper training, how do we ensure that we address issues like fatigue, and then how do we address the issues of ambulance waiting at the hospitals in addition to adding additional resources. I am really looking forward to getting reports from the committee. Now, they're going to be doing 2 reports, one in spring and one in the fall. But I also asked them to, if they have an idea right now, bring it forward. And we'll use it as a fast fail. Now, they changed my language. They call it a fast success, and I appreciate that. But we do recognize if there's a good idea, let's implement it. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We'll try something different till we get it right, because we know we need to address the EMS issues in this province, particularly in rural Alberta. And of critical importance to all this is bringing back to our announcement today is the work that Halo, STARS, and HERO are doing. And I'd like to point out, and I want to thank them because we were talking about this earlier today, is that they are one of the subcommittees and working on how better to integrate and work together, learn from each other, the 3 organizations, and all become stronger together. And part of the sustainable funding will enable to do that. So once again, I want to thank everyone involved in the Halo and the HERO operations, the pilots, the crew members, the paid staff, as well as the wider emergency support community. And quite frankly, I want to thank all of you, because how do they do their work? They do their work because we work together as a community. This is about funding. This is about support. This is about the years of effort to say we need something for our communities. We are going to support that, and I'm very pleased that our government can help support you. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the CEO of Halo, your hero today, Paul Carolyn.
Good morning, everyone. I make no promises that I will make it through this. This represents the missing partnership that Halo has been advocating for almost 20 years. I cannot even come close to recognizing the amount of people that have both donated financially and advocated for this program politically and with their MLAs and their ministers over that entire time. Halo takes extreme pride, and one of the reasons we're most successful and we have such a deep relationship with our community is that we maximize every single dollar. Premier Kenney, Minister Copping, you have our commitment that this investment will be treated with the same respect as every single dollar that people in this room have donated, counties have donated, and corporations have donated to keep this program going for the last 15 years. Later this year, we celebrate 15 years of service to Southern Alberta. Hundreds, if not thousands, of lives saved, and certainly thousands of lives impacted. I'm extremely proud to serve this program, and I can't imagine having a bigger honor in my life to be a part of something so important. I will take a moment to recognize our board of directors who spend their own money to be a part of this program. I know of both present and past board members who have hired people to help seed their farms when they needed to attend a meeting with me in Edmonton so that we could advocate for this decision today. I know of board members who have 3 times the mileage on their vehicles because they show up on short notice for a check presentation from a community group a 4-H group, a county, a corporation, an individual, and we could never have done it without all of them. To the board of directors, you have dedicated your lives to this, and we are so fortunate to have you as part of our team. I would also like to recognize the Little family. Les Little is a patriarch of our program. We're very fortunate to have Rangeland Helicopters as our aviation partner. Les, Terry, Doug, Sherry, we could not have done this without you. This is your victory as well. To everyone, we'll never be able to say thank you enough, but you have our commitment that we will continue to serve dedicated service to all of Southern Alberta. I joined the HALO program shortly after our twin-engine helicopter, HALO 1, joined the program. And I remember calling Dale, our chair, and telling him that, congratulations, you're on the next level now. And I followed that up with immediately telling him that the job just got immensely harder. This is just the new stage of that. This is more work for us now, and we're prepared for that work. This represents 1/3 of the partnership, the missing partnership that we have been asking for 15 years. We still need, and we have to make sure that we maximize the relationships that we've developed over that time that make this program possible. We still need to make sure we execute and raise the second and third of our program funding to make sure that we can continue to serve. Thank you very much, and appreciate you all being here. Very proud to have Paul Spring and his wife Andrea here from Hero. I'll call Paul up.
Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. As Minister Copping commented, I drove down and it was an absolute pleasure. I used to live in Medicine Hat decades ago and do the drive between Fort McMurray and Medicine Hat when I was working up there. For Associated Helicopters, my wife was still working here at the hospital as a physiotherapist, so I did the drive between Fort Mac and Medicine Hat every 2 weeks. So I didn't really want to get back into doing it, but I really enjoyed driving down the length of eastern Alberta. It's so rewarding to see what a great, vast province we have. But that vastness is what means helicopters are required. We need helicopters to get at people. We've got Albertans working all over the place in the lumber industry, oil and gas, farming, doing all sorts of recreating, and helicopters are essential. So before I get on with too much about helicopters, big thanks to Premier Kenney and Minister Copping, and not present today, our MLA from Fort McMurray, Wood Buffalo, Tanny Yao, who used to fly in the back as a paramedic when I would go out on calls with our single-engine aircraft. But this is a momentous increase in funding for us. It's a recognition. Thank you so much for this. The program really started out of passion. Medicine and aviation are really passion industries, but helicopters don't fly on passion. Pilots and mechanics won't work for you based just on passion. They have to put food on the table, so we need money. When we started this program about 8 years ago, my wife and business partner at Phoenix Heli Flight and I took a huge chance. We went out on a limb, knowing what needed to be done up in northeastern Alberta. I'd already been flying medevacs up there since the 80s. So I knew the power of a helicopter as a time machine to get people and drugs to the patients who needed them and get them back to the hospital, to pull them out of the woods, to pull them out of a car crash in a remote area. So we knew all this, but the funding wasn't there. So we really took a leap, and big hand to Andrea, my executive director and wife, girlfriend since we were 15. We rolled the dice and we put in $8 million of our company's money. We didn't have $8 million, so we borrowed it. I may have lied to the bank a bit. To start the HERO program with a dedicated 24/7 helicopter. So we've got 9 pilots on that, big twin-engine aircraft, night vision goggles, IFR. We went full right out of the box with the best we could do because the people of our region needed that service. We'd heard stories of people dying in the woods at night because no one could go to them, and they could have been saved, bleeding out, all sorts of problems that we knew about because my wife worked at the hospital. She would see the doctors and they'd talk about, oh, how come Paul didn't go save this guy? So we took that leap and we slowly built a community around that service. RMWB, our former Mayor Melissa Blake, helped out with the first check we got. Then we got some oil companies involved. We were on fee-for-service like Halo for a while. Finally, we got Alberta Health involved, and this is another big step. This will go from about 25% up to 50% of our funding. It really cements our foundation in Fort McMurray. We've had a couple of tough years like everybody in the fundraising business. You can't have events when you're having a global pandemic. So we've slipped a little bit behind. So this is a really welcome announcement. We look forward to working with Alberta Health through the subcommittees that Minister Copping mentioned. A group of subject matter experts, including Paul from Halo, STARS, and people from throughout the province who have input on how we make air ambulance better for the province, how we serve the people of Alberta in an efficient and effective way going forward. So we look forward to working with that committee and coming up with recommendations that the government is willing to listen to. So again, I'll go back to, I really appreciate this funding. It's a great announcement. It puts a really solid foundation under our program. We're hoping to get a bigger helicopter. We still need our community partners and our oil sands partners, everybody who contributes, whether it's $5 or $500, it doesn't matter. It all goes into the same pot to help save lives. And I'll be available for questions later if you want about our program. Sorry I couldn't bring the helicopter down, but it's there working, and I know if a call came in right now, we'd open the door and this one would be leaving. That's the kind of dedication there is to the program. And you'll all be helping get it out of here. We could pull it out. We got a big group. So again, grateful for this money. Thanks to the province of Alberta, Premier Kenney, Minister Copping. Really appreciate it.
Thank you to our speakers. We're going to move to the media Q&A. There's a media microphone just there. If you have a question, please identify your name, your outlet, and who you'd like to direct your question to. And we'll go with one question and one follow-up.
Hi there. I'm just Colin Gallant, Medicine Hat News. I'm just wondering if either Paul or the health minister can discuss. There was some discussion about the province or the general idea being half the operational funding in the agreement, but we're hearing from Paul that we're still doing a sort of one-third, one-third, one-third. Can you explain to me the difference of between perhaps funding for the other services? And Paul, what is your plan going forward in terms of reaching out to municipalities?
I'll start, and then Paul can supplement. So there's the funding commitment is up to 50% in terms of the operating the base operating funding. There needs to be a discussion between AHS and the organizations about how that's going to work. So we actually have budgeted for that, but now they need to go work out the details. And I understand there's other revenue flows as well. But Paul, if you want to talk further to that.
Thank you, Minister Copping, and thanks for the question. So I would just reiterate what the minister said. We've been working on this for a number of years, and there's also the work that's happening on the task force that Minister Copping and Premier Kenney have stood up about ground EMS. So we haven't finalized the negotiations with Alberta Health Services, and that's ultimately where the 5-year contract will come from, as well as the final determination of funding. So we are anticipating 50%. And it's certainly our intention, but just keeping in track with, the message that we have had in the past and the work that we have done with rural municipalities on the funding model that we thought was achievable, this surpasses that. And one of the reasons that we're so excited about the partnership with the Government of Alberta coming on board allows us to do that in an effective way. It not only allows us to continue to provide the level of service that we have provided up until now, but it also gives us room to grow into an even better world-class helicopter emergency medical service program based right here in Medicine Hat.
Okay, I guess I'm still confused about the 50%, and then there's a base rate, but there'd still be fee for service. It's a bit confusing, but I mean, half of $3 million isn't $1 million.
Absolutely. So I think the answer to your question is that this is based on advocacy. The minister has recognized that. And the ultimate and the final number will be negotiated directly with Alberta Health Services, which is where the final contract will be between HALO and the Ministry of Health.
Are you still requesting money from rural municipalities?
We will still be working with rural municipalities, absolutely. They've been a strategic partner. They've got us this far. And no matter what, we need to make sure that we find the gap, whether that's 33% or 50%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex McQuaig, Western producer, and this is for the Minister or the Premier. We've heard a lot about efficiencies. The proposal sounds very similar to what was on the table 3 years ago. Can you talk a little bit about why it's taken that long? We've had a HEMS report come out. Why it's taken this long, and what was the process like?
So I can start with the question, and if the Premier wants to, or anyone else would like that, that's fine. So my understanding that, previous government sort of did a one-time grant. This is a longer-term grant, right? So it's a five-year contract. Really, what this is about is addressing sustainability. The HEMS report was done because we were taking a look at, at a very high level, is how do we improve overall delivery of air ambulance services in the province. At a high level, the HEMS said we need sustainable funding. Number one. We need to have we need better integration of operations, number two, and then there's a regulation part. I'm generalizing, but broadly speaking, that's what the HEMS report said. So this is the first step of our response to the HEMS report, which is really about how do we provide sustainable funding over the long term, up to 50%, we talked about with Hilo and Halo and STARS. So we're doing that. In terms of the integration, this is part of the work that they're doing right now, and it's not just us imposing. It's like, come to the table. So that's why we set up this sub-table under the Ministerial Advisory Committee. So, AHS with the 3 service providers talking about how do we integrate dispatch, how do we work together, how do we cover each other off. So, for example, if STARS is dealing with a particular issue, and Paul and I were just talking about that. If STARS is dealing with a particular issue in a bus rollover in Banff, then can Halo backfill with other areas and go outside of their normal operating areas to be able to do that. They hadn't set up the protocols, so let's go set up those protocols in terms of dispatch. The last piece is the regulatory piece, we'll be asking them to actually work with us, as advisory on this committee to do that. So, we are addressing the major components of the HEMS report. We had also heard some concerns about, initially in the HEMS report saying, well, one organization, right, to do all of this. And we heard feedback, particularly from, folks here, right, in the room, and about the tremendous work that Hero and Halo do. But what the driving port of the driving concern was better integration, better efficiencies, working together, and quite frankly, we're accomplishing that. And the first step is financial sustainability.
You have a follow-up, Alex?
Yeah, I guess the efficiency, why wasn't this started 3 years ago? Why did it take 3 years wouldn't it have been more efficient? These issues existed 3 years ago. Wouldn't it have been more efficient to start doing these processes 3 years ago rather than...
Well, we started with the HEMS report. We got the HEMS report. That came in. We had some concerns were raised about, what exactly it says. We consulted with the community, and now we are actually implementing at this point in time.
Thank you. Any more questions on the floor? Go ahead.
Chris Brown, Chat News. This is a question for the Premier, I guess. What is it about, as Mr. Carolyn indicated in his remarks, it's been years of discussions, negotiations. Is there something specific about this time period that the deal was finally struck?
Well, I don't know why previous governments didn't provide stable funding to these great organizations. You could ask that about 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Those decisions were made. What I know is this, that we commissioned a report on how to improve air ambulance services early in the tenure of this government, got the report, consulted with local communities, and then over the past year we saw growing stress on the entire emergency medical service network across the province and so we worked with the Department of Finance to bring forward additional funding to address these EMS pressures generally, and part of that was additional funding for air ambulance services. So, we're getting to the right decision. This is how government policy develops. You get the experts to give you advice. You consult with the local community. And, I'll also remind you that in the first 3 years of this government, we were facing a massive deficit. In fact, in the bottom of the COVID trough in 2020, we were looking at a deficit of as much as $24 billion. We were broker than broke. And so we were not in a fiscal position to start making long-term major funding increases across government, but that's recovered. We have this strong economic recovery. Our revenues are coming back right across the economy with diversification, and we now have a balanced budget. So we were able to add $600 million to the health budget, $64 million to EMS, and $8 million to air ambulance. So I guess there was the policy development, and then more recently the improvement of the fiscal situation that made this possible.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, along the same lines. It's been about 3 years, I think, since you've been in Medicine Hat for any sort of event such as this or announcement such as this. Why are you here now and with everything else, everything happening in the Stampede?
Well, I don't think that's yeah, sure. I don't think that's accurate. I think somebody counted I've been here well over a dozen times, but I was here just a couple of weeks ago and met with folks over at the Stampede grounds. We've brought forward funding in the budget to help them develop their plan for an expansion of the Stampede grounds. There's also some initial funding for other infrastructure work in town. I was meeting with people on that. But look, during COVID, it was hard to travel around and do public events, let's face it. But no, I've been happy to be down in Southeast Alberta many times and will continue to visit. And Michaela, you have something?
Yes, thank you, Premier, and thank you, Chris, for the question. I would like to note that I believe the 25 people in cabinet, we have only 3 ministers who haven't been to Medicine Hat, and the Premier himself, I believe, has been to Medicine Hat more than any sitting Premier in Alberta's history, and I would take that to the bank. He has shown a great interest in southeastern Alberta, has always been down whenever I've asked him to come down. His staff have been exceedingly generous with his schedule, and I think that later he's speaking to the Chamber of Commerce today to address some of their concerns as well as speak about the budget. So I guess my response to that would be, if we are truly concerned about making sure that that people are engaged with the Premier, I would encourage everyone to come to the Chamber of Commerce lunch at 12 today. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to the phones. Operator, can you please put through our first caller?
Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
Good morning, everyone. This is a question for Paul Carolyn. Paul, how will this funding change HALO in terms of medical staff, equipment in general, or will things remain status quo?
Great question. So we have an integrated system with existing Alberta Health Service paramedics. There are some incredible efficiencies with that, in that those paramedics have exceedingly high clinical skills because they serve both on a ground ambulance and in regional hospitals. So the initial funding negotiations with Alberta Health will continue with our program as we see fit. We want to explore that partnership further and see if we're using the most efficient way of doing so. We'll also be working with Minister Copping's task force on what the best capacity is for the system. However, HALO is open to having our own air medical crew members if that is the best path forward. For the time being, we will continue to operate as we've been doing so for 15 years.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. And when will you receive the funding? Do you know yet?
So this announcement has been forthcoming only for a short time, and we have not engaged at this time with Alberta Health Services. We will be negotiating directly with Alberta Health as far as the term and the amounts, as we discussed earlier. So we do not know when the funding will come, but we're committed to a transparent process with Alberta Health Services to negotiate that contract and get those details out.
Thank you. Operator, can you please put through our next caller?
Dave Kaiser, City News.
Good morning. My question for the Premier. Mr. Premier, and you, Angus Reid, polls out here shows a majority of people who responded to the survey saying every aspect of your government is either being run poorly or very poorly, and that includes healthcare. So I'm wondering, ahead of the leadership race here, what do you say to these people who are criticizing you and the kind of job you've done so far?
Well, actually, I hear Albertans are excited about the amazing Alberta recovery story. We are leading Canada in economic growth. We did so last year. We're doing it again this year. 145,000 net new jobs created in the past 14 months. Incredible diversification, the first balanced budget in 14 years, and a government that's delivered on nearly 90% of our commitments in the last election. So we have done what we said we would do, and one of the things we're focusing on here today is ensuring high-quality health services. For example, we committed to our public health guarantee in the last election that we would maintain or increase funding for the health system and maintain a universal public system. Health funding is now $2 billion higher, and we're working to improve the quality of those services to get more bang for the taxpayer's buck. Because this is, but ultimately none of that is possible unless we have a growing economy. This economy is firing on all cylinders. I would say the biggest concern that Albertans have right now, though, is the cost of living and inflation. That's why at midnight tonight we suspend the Alberta fuel tax that will, on an annual basis, save Albertans about $1.4 billion in taxation. Unfortunately, the Trudeau government at the same time is planning tonight at midnight to raise their carbon tax by 25% because they want to punish people for filling up their gas tanks and heating their homes. So we'll continue to address the top priorities of Albertans. Obviously, everybody was frustrated with COVID. In Alberta, we had a lot of polarization. Some people that Ms. Notley and others that demanded the hard lockdowns for the last 2 years, others who were opposed to restrictions, and I hope that we can move past that and leave that division in the past as we focus on this fantastic Alberta economic recovery that we are now experiencing.
Do you have a follow-up, Save?
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Premier, leaving the carbon tax out of it, why are so many people then criticizing your government if you feel like you've done such a good job? Are you being unfairly treated here?
Well, actually, what I've seen is incredibly positive comments coming from Albertans. I've been all over the province in the last couple of weeks. Thankfully, we can get out and meet people again. And I've been everywhere from Lac La Biche down here to Medicine Hat. And I'm hearing a positive spirit in this province. Albertans are natural optimists. They just need a reason for their optimism. And there's plenty of those reasons right now. In fact, we believe that the biggest, apart from the cost of living and inflation made worse by the Trudeau carbon taxes, the biggest challenge we'll be facing in the next few years is likely going to be a shortage of workers and skills. And that's why we're skating to where the puck is headed with our Alberta Works initiative in this budget, our support for training, our Skills for Jobs program, and our reformed immigration program. One thing I'd like to highlight for folks down here in Southeast Alberta is the exciting new rural renewal immigration strategy for communities that have been facing population stagnation or decline. That is a great opportunity to attract talented newcomers on a permanent basis to help build your communities, and the Alberta government wants to be a partner with that. So, you're safe. There's no secret that you had a lot of polarization in COVID that frustrated a lot of people on both sides. You had your pro-lockdown side of the debate and your anti-restriction side of the debate. What we tried to do was to navigate a sensible middle ground approach to avoid the terrible damage to people's mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial well-being of hard lockdown style policies. We tried to avoid that successfully. We also tried to avoid a catastrophe in our healthcare system that would have required us to deny people care. Thankfully, we avoided both of those extremes, but unfortunately, there was a very divisive debate. I hope we can put that past us and focus on a very bright future for the province.
Thank you. Last call for any questions on the phone. Operator,
right.
Do we have any other in the queue?
Oh, sorry, Justin. And, so go ahead.
Hi there, just Colin Gallant from the Medicine Hat News again. Premier, you talked a lot about the criticism that you've received on social media last week. What advice would you give other political figures who are maybe using such, terms like authoritarian, dictator, specifically Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas?
Well, social media is, I personally, I for my own mental sanity, try to stay off it most of the time. But I would just say that, on social media, I see a lot of anger. You can just check out my Facebook page a lot of the time, and the Twitter from the other end of the spectrum. But, I just think that those voices I characterized, people calling for my execution for crimes against humanity, for violating the Nuremberg trials, or there's just like these random collection of words that people string together. Here's the good news. That represents a tiny, tiny fraction of the population. Back in the day, when people could only write letters to the editor or make phone and call-in shows, that kind of view didn't get out there. But people now can self-publish. So I think we should. I take it. I just want to focus on mainstream Albertans who they believe in, I think generally, responsible fiscal policy, pro-growth policies, good quality public services. They want a strong Alberta. And so my focus is on working with mainstream Albertans to build a stronger and more prosperous province. And I don't think we should give too much attention to some of those voices in social media that are really way out there on the fringe.
But if you don't deserve it, sir, why does Justin Trudeau deserve it?
He doesn't. I'm not suggesting that when people call for my execution on social media, I'm not defending it if they do the same for Mr. Trudeau. In terms of Alberta, look, Canada is a democracy, but I strongly disagree with Justin Trudeau on pretty much everything. And in terms of his abuse of authority, that's why Alberta is the only province in Canada suing Justin Trudeau in court to challenge the constitutionality of his use of the Emergencies Act, which in our view was completely disproportionate, a huge overreach, the use of extraordinary powers. We demonstrated at Coots the ability of law enforcement to deal with a difficult situation using their ordinary police powers. We did not have to resort to virtual martial law because the Emergencies Act is the successor to the War Measures Act. So I think that he created a very dangerous precedent, and that's why Alberta is standing up for civil liberties, together with the Canadian Constitution Foundation and the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, to challenge Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act. We hope that the courts will use this opportunity to limit future governments from a misapplication of those extraordinary powers. With that, I just wanted to thank everybody from the community here. I forgot, by the way, when I went through all the MLAs who did the advocacy for Halo down here, I neglected somehow to mention Joe Scow, and I don't know how because he's hard to miss. So thank you to Big Joe as well. And also, I just wanted to also give a particular shout out to Tanny Yao up in Fort McMurray, who's been a relentless advocate for Hero, and Tanny, of course, a former EMS paramedic himself, as we heard, has flown many of those missions, is a passionate advocate for air ambulance, for EMS, and for the people of northeastern Alberta. And I just appreciate these folks and their public service. And once again, I just want to close on a positive note, thanking everybody here in the community for your support for this organization, because really, I mean, people in the city of Medicine Hat don't need this as much as people out in the underpopulated rural areas or the less populated rural areas down here. And some of them are very sparsely populated, as we know, in southeast Alberta. And so you can be 2+ hours away from a hospital with trauma or critical care capacity. And that's why these services are so important. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in southeast Alberta for your vision in this organization, for Paul and Paul, for all that you and your teams do, and looking forward to being back here and seeing how you're going to be able to expand and stabilize your services with this funding. So God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you.